We have the Neely Carl Nelson show is on the air.
Oh, okay.
Going live.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
All right, good and grand rising to all who have tuned into today's program, the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. This is Tuesday, the 23rd of February, 2021's show. Hope that you enjoy that. Grand rising to all those who have joined the chat room. Thank you for that. And let's see here. I think that's it. Oh, yes. Contact numbers, 516-453-9921. Be sure to depress the number 1 button and you will get in line, as some have done already. You can also contact the show by my Gmail address, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Hopefully I'll get a chance to get into a few of them. We have a tremendous backlog of Gmail, so I will try to get to them as I possibly can. As far as I know, all the books are in. Mr. Fuller will be discussing that in specifics later on in the program, so we will get to that. I want to start off today's program with something we ended up last week's show about, I guess it was concerning VGQ, and some discussion came up about something about Mr. Trump, or a question was asked, what do you think about what Mr. Trump said? And I contacted Mr. Fuller after the show about that so we can get that straight, because we don't want confusion. You know, I'm not in the area of judging Mr. Trump, but the only thing I can say or responded to that question was in the counter-racist code logic mode, which was the only thing that I can say and be truthful about it is he said what he said, and he has done what he has done. That's it. I can't add to it. Can't take away from it. Whatever he said, those were his words. If you want me to interpret that, I can't. The only thing I can interpret is that he said what he said, and he has done what he has done. So I asked Mr. Fuller, I called Mr. Fuller and asked if I was that a correct response to that. And Mr. Fuller, just share with the people, the callers, the listeners, what we discussed concerning that particular exchange.
Well, VGQ, what is the purpose of VGQ? I think that would be the question. It's to keep black people from arguing with each other about anything connected with race, racism, and or counter-racism. Now, what do the letters VGQ mean, according to compensatory counter-racist logic and the terms that I invented to express that frame of reference? It means Victims Guaranteed Qualification, VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualifications. Victim of what? Victim of the system of white supremacy. So that wouldn't apply to Mr. Trump or any other white person in the system of white supremacy, because in the system of white supremacy, no white person can be a victim of white supremacy. they can be a white person can be a victim of mistreatment, but not be a victim of white supremacy. You have to be classified as non-white to be a victim of white supremacy, according to compensatory counter-racist logic. So anything that would apply to a white person in the system of white supremacy during the existence of the system of white supremacy, VGQ would not apply to that person. So VGQ is designed to keep black people, non-white people, from arguing with each other about points of view on race, racism, and or counter-racism. However, like Mr. Bobby was saying, if someone asked him a question, part of the VGQ factor is that since it applies, he was asked something about what Mr. Trump was involved in as far as something directly, indirectly connected with race, racism, or counter-racism. Mr. Bobby, under his VGQ guarantee, he can say whatever he wants to say, and he can respond by applying that to Mr. Donald Trump. Why? Because that's a guaranteed qualification. That's why. That's the logic. So it might have been a little bit confusion there, but that's clear cut. A victim can say anything that he or she chooses to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism, as long as he or she is a victim of racism, a victim of the system of white supremacy. That's a guaranteed qualification. Now, someone may disagree with what's being said, and they may argue, and may want to fight, and may even punish you. But you're guaranteed that qualification under the laws of justice. If you can't talk about your victimization, what can you do? You can't even talk about your victimization when you're a victim and always have been. As a non-white person, you come under the system of white supremacy even before you were born, because you're born into the system that's already off and running. And it's a victimization system. The system of white supremacy is designed to produce victims. So a victim of racism and illegitimate government should be able to say anything that he or she chooses to say that's directly or indirectly connected with his or her victimization. So if there's any confusion there, I hope that clears it up. That if you're classified as non-white, you can say anything you want to about what anybody says, as long as it has something to do with racism, regardless of what anybody else says about it. Now, you can shut the person up by shouting them down or shooting the person or just telling the person you'll put them in jail or they'll lose their job or whatever. But you're qualified. See, that's what VGQ means. You are qualified to say what you said. And if you're commenting on something that a white person may or may not be doing, you're qualified to say that. If you're a victim of racism and you're talking about anything connected with race. But basically, it's to keep black people, non-white people, from saying, oh, you ain't got no business saying that. You ain't no spokesperson for me. Well, that's true, because you have VGQ. If you respond like that to something that some other non-white person is saying, but you can't say they're not qualified to say what they're saying. So that keeps black people from arguing with each other about their victimization. Why? because it doesn't produce constructive results. That's why.
Exactly.
You want to know the reasons for VGQ.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. Thank you. That clears it up as far as that's concerned. Okay. Let's go with today's program. Now, Mr. Fuller, Brian B1 has written a Gmail that I didn't quite understand, and I told him or responded to him that I would read it just the way he wrote it. This is exactly the way that he wrote it, and he is asking a question about something that you may have said. I don't recall, but here it goes. He says, Mr. Bobby, could you ask Mr. Neely Fuller has a quote as this quote, black people serious about serious things, anything serious, black people making a joke. It goes like that. Can you ask what is the correct way to say this? Thank you.
Generally speaking, the way that I have written it, and I've said it on the air, is that black people, under the system of white supremacy, have a tendency, because we're taught to have the tendency, to be serious about everything that is silly, and to be silly about everything that is serious. That's within the counter-racist frame of reference. And it's understandable, because when you are in the depths of despair and it doesn't seem like anything is going to work for you and everything seems hopeless, there's a cliche saying that goes way, way back, and that is laughing to keep from crying. And I think a blues singer once wrote a line saying, the blues can make you happy too. Yeah. That's a thought that a lot of people might have a problem with, but that was the perspective of a person who was known as a blues singer. I forgot the name of the person, but he wrote a song with that name. The blues can make you happy too. I mean, so a person may raise a question, seriously, how can the blues make you happy? You got the blues. I mean, you can't have the blues and be happy too. But then it's just a thought, I guess, like laughing to keep from crying. I guess that's possible.
Okay.
Hysterical laughter. They get ready to lead you to be hung, but you're just laughing and laughing and laughing. Why? Because you say, what's the use of crying? Might as well laugh at my situation as I go out of here.
All right.
And a lot of black people may have that vision. That's their vision of everything, you know. Nothing is going to work for me anyway. I might as well just laugh about it, make fun of it, make a joke about it, rather than be miserable.
Okay. All righty. Well, Brian, there you go. And I hope that answer is satisfactory for you. Another question, Mr. Fuller says, this is from Daryl, says, the first is, I have two questions for you. First, what is your advice to black people on how to respond to when non-black people begin going out of their way to appease us? What I mean by this is what we witnessed this past summer, where they began taking down Confederate statues, painting Black Lives Matter on city streets, fake apologizing for their racism, and even getting on their knees, fake asking for our forgiveness. We didn't ask for any of that, but they forced it on us, and when the overt racist, like the ones who stormed the Capitol on January the 6th, see this, they blame us. they want to target us. I ask because I don't see anything in your code book directly addressing this aspect. So what should our proper response be to these so-called well-meaning whites when they decide to do these, quote, good deeds, end of quote, on our behalf without our consent?
Silence. That's the best response. According to the compensatory counter-racist logic, when someone says they're going to do a repair job or they're going to straighten something out that needs straightening out, they're going to correct something that needs correcting, they're going to replace the system of white supremacy with a system of justice. When a white person says that, the logical response, or they demonstrate some type of action, the logical response to that, if that's the intent for a victim of racism, is just to stand back out of the way. Because white people usually know what they're doing and they're pretty efficient at doing it. This is why people follow behind them. So if they say they're going to end racism, we're sick and tired of this mess. We're sick and tired of arguing about it. Let's just get rid of it. Let's just get rid of it once and for all. I mean, we white people can step forward. I mean, we know how to get things done. So we're going to do it. So if a person, black people are just trying to figure things out, scratching our heads, shuffling our feet, marching, crying, dying, the whole 9 yards, year after year, month after month, eon after eon, don't seem to know too much about what we're doing or how to go about doing it. Decade after decade, writing books, having plays, making movies, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of speeches, including Neely Fuller included. And a white person say, look, y'all don't know what y'all are doing. I mean, the way you go about doing stuff, it'll take you 1,000,000 years to get anything done. I'm a white supremacist. I know how it works. So I'm just kind of sick of it now. I mean, had a little fun with it. Been there, done that. So I'm ready to try justice now. Seriously. So when a white person walks up to me and says that while I'm marching along and demonstrating and whatnot and crying and moaning and protesting and telling everybody how angry I am, and a white person steps up and says, that little petty stuff that you're doing ain't going nowhere. I'm going to show you how it's done. Stand back and go completely silent. Because white people know more about how white supremacy is put together better than anybody on the planet. They know how it's put together. So anytime anybody knows how to put something together, they know how to take it apart better than anybody. So it's logical. That's all you have to do. You don't have to say, well, I don't trust you. No, just stand back and be silent and see if they're going to do what they said they're going to do. And if they don't do it, then that's when you say, well, this white lady, Sheila, said she knew how to wrap this thing up in a couple of weeks. So the only question there is, did she do it? A couple of weeks have gone by. She said she could do it in 2 weeks. 2 weeks have gone by. Did she do it? You're just in the question mode. And Van says no. You don't have to say nothing else. You just look at Sheila and say nothing. But she'll know what the look is about. You said you were going to wrap this thing up in 2 weeks. I don't see nothing, not even the wrappings.
Okay. All righty. And the last question Daryl has, it says, this next and final question is, Mr. Fuller, what was your inspiration when you came up with your phrase, quote, if you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, end the quote, exactly 50 years ago this year? Thanks you. But, what was your inspiration, Mr. Fuller, that opening statement that you open up every program with, even including today's program?
I was trying to get away from racism. I would talk to somebody, 10, 12 years old. Certainly by the time I was 16, I was really serious about it in my mind as far as asking questions, starting with little elementary things like, I ask people, I say, where can I go where there's nobody pays any attention to what color you are? What place? And people would say, well, hey, I mean, a whole lot of black people leave the South and go to Kansas City. I say, well, is there racism in Kansas City? Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, but it's a little better than being in Alabama. I say, but I want to go someplace because I've been looking at movies. By 1939, I was old enough to go to the movies on my own, and I saw movies like The Wizard of Oz, where you go skipping down the yellow brick road with Dorothy and the elves and all that, and looking for the wizard who would give me the answer to everything, and that Oz was a splendid place to be, a whole lot better than Kansas. All right? So that's what the movie's message was about. Get out of Kansas and go to Oz, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, where nobody's been before. There's a land that I've heard of, once in a lullaby. I bought into all of that. And I bought into other stories prior to that, like, all the fairy tales, that's what they call them, when I was in elementary school. Tell us another fairy tale. So I was looking for those fairy tales to come true because that's what a lot of songs said you're supposed to do. And that's how it got started. It goes back as far as elementary school. And then I found out, much to my despair, really, initially, there's no escape. Racism is everywhere. You can't go to some island somewhere and there's racism not there. The racists control that. If there's some non-white people there, either directly or indirectly. You're on an island, say. How do they control that? Well, they control that by whether or not you can leave the island and go somewhere else. Because somewhere else is controlled by them, and where you are is controlled by them. Because anytime they come there, they just come there and build an airstrip, fighting a war or something like that, and just push you out of the way, even when they're fighting among themselves. So I learned that, and I say it's nowhere to run. So then I came to the conclusion about 1956, and I said, Fuller, you know what? Forget about that running. Turn around and grab that bull by the horns. Win or lose. And so I've been on that kick ever since.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That thing called racism. Yeah. There ain't nowhere to hide running around in the Coliseum with that bull, that white bull chasing you. I mean, with them sharp horns, and you got nothing but yourself and your legs trying to run. But at a certain point, you realize there's no escape. There ain't no exit here. I'm just running around in a circle in the Colosseum, in the Roman Colosseum, like they used to do to slaves. So that means one thing. At some point, you're just going to get tired of running, and you're going to get gored anyway because you're weak. You're tired. So before you give out of strength altogether, turn around and grab it by the horns and let's wrestle. All right. I mean, I'm going to do the best I can. I might lose, but, hey, I'm losing anyway. And that's what started me down that road. I think drawing that picture, you may get the picture of how I came to that conclusion.
Okay.
No place to run.
Place to run. Okay. Thank you, Daryl, for your question. Let me do this just a tad early. You are listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. And I'm going to say this here on blogtalkradio.com. I say that for Brian because he said that he couldn't get the program. But go to blogtalkradio.com and you can hear the program. We're on live right now. To get in contact with the show, you can also dial this number, 516-453-9921. Depress the number 1 button and you will get in line. Or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. You can do that, and I may or may not get a chance to read your Gmails. The chat room is open. Be careful. You're in there. Remember that whatever you say is in cyberspace forever, but just be mindful of your brothers and sisters as you write. Whatever you write, everybody can read it who gets on there. So, okay. All righty, let's go to the phone lines. We're going to go way over in Japan. Let's see here if I can get you in here. There we go. Che, I believe it is. You are live with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby. I hope you're doing all right.
Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions if there's time. If not, just the first question.
If you do it real quickly, okay?
Okay, sure. The first question, I called a few weeks ago asking about avoiding debates and so on. Mr. Fuller suggested that you start with justice and that the conversation will naturally lead into racism. And I've been discussing that with my alleged family, my alleged wife and children, and we've been talking about it, and we've seen how to use justice in discussions, but we can't quite imagine how it leads to racism. Could Mr. Fuller perhaps give some of his experience or something of that nature, or maybe an example of how a discussion on justice might lead to, would certainly lead to racism?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
By asking the definition of words, starting with focusing on justice. The compensatory counter-racist definition for justice, like I have in the word guide that people can get by going to producejustice.com, is guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. You have to have those 2 factors in order to have a thing called justice. And the compensatory definition for justice is, number 1, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. You have to have that. If you got anybody being mistreated, that's not justice. And number 2, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, the most constructive help in what? In all of the 9 areas of activity. The most constructive help in economics, then in education, in entertainment, the way that people entertain themselves, you want constructive help, not non-constructive help, constructive help in the field of entertainment that produces constructive results. Entertainment, labor, and the work that you do, the most constructive help, without being mistreated, without anybody being mistreated. Law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The most constructive help that produces constructive results, which means no one is mistreated. You got to guarantee it. No ifs and buts. No half-stepping. Now, if you talk about that around the dinner table or wherever, just talk about producing justice. If you just run tests on it, you'll find out that that's going to run smack into the race problem. Why? Because black people on this planet in the 21st century are the people who definitely need not to be mistreated. That's what all the Black Lives Matter signs are all about. That's why we're being focused on all over the world. Black people, white people painting signs saying Black Lives Matter. A few of them have a few signs saying White Lives Matter too. But basically they're saying, oh, well, black people are the people who are mostly being mistreated. I wouldn't want to be black. I'm white. I don't want to be black. That's not any improvement. That wouldn't help my condition at all, being black. No. Hey, I'm white, and I'm going to take advantage of all the benefits that have been built up over the centuries that go along with that. I mean, I'm not giving that up. See, so they know who's being mistreated. Everybody knows who's getting the most mistreatment. Now, this world is full of mistreatment. That's not saying that white people are not mistreated. White people mistreat each other on a huge scale. But if you're looking at the butt of every joke, it's going to be somebody of color. I mean, if it's a real powerful joke, something that have people just lying in the floor kicking and screaming and laughing like you couldn't believe. We're considered the butt of every joke. We're considered the butt of everything. All right? That's all we are. A lot of waste matter and a conduit for waste matter. That's why we have to say Black Lives Matter. We're not just something you kick by the side of the road like an old tin can that's worn out and rusted. So it'll lead there if you just run tests on it. If you try to talk to black people about race, most likely the first thing you get is going to be either, well, ho-hum, they're going to yawn, at everything you say, or they're going to simply say, I know all about that. I don't care about what you're talking about. Or they'll get opposition. They'll disagree with everything you say. So how do you best get there to discuss solving the race problem? You just talk about justice, and it's going to lead to the race problem. Now, the only way to really prove what I'm saying is to put a test on it, on the job and whatnot, when you're sitting there talking about, now how can we improve conditions around here? We'll just start talking about justice, but define what it is, guaranteeing that no one is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And guess who that's going to be, if there's any black people there.
Okay. All right. Shay, what is your second question quickly here as we're running short?
Okay, thank you. In dealing with history, I've always loved to study history and always wanted to apply history to try and help us with our problems. But talking to Mr. Fuller, I don't know what really is the most constructive use of knowledge of history. It seems like I'd like to hear what Mr. Fuller thinks, how we can use knowledge of history to help ourselves.
Okay, thank you for your question. Mr. Fuller?
History is everything. When people ask me, this is Black History Month, they say, quote, unquote. But when people ask me, what is my history, how much of my history do I know, it depends on the question. If the question is, Fuller, how much of your history do you know? I say, almost nothing. And they say, but you're out here talking and whatnot, and you don't know your history and whatnot. Then I tell them what the code says, what is history, period. What is my history, Neely Fuller's history? And the codified response to that question directly is my history is everything ever happened before the beginning of time and since the beginning of time. That's my history, and that's the truth. So if you ask me how much of my history do I know, it's just about zero when it comes to knowing everything that ever happened before the beginning of time. Before the beginning of time and since the beginning of time. I'm talking about a speck of dust 40 trillion light years, as they call them, away from where I am right now. I know the history of that speck of dust because that's my history. Everything that ever happened before the beginning of time and since. And I would say that under oath in anybody's court, and I would be telling the truth. I wouldn't be making it up. So if you ask me, what is my history, that's the answer. Everything that ever happened before the beginning of time and since. And they'll say, well, what's the purpose of studying history? You're going to learn everything that happened? Every speck of dust that was ever created 40 trillion light years ago? You know the history of that speck of dust? I say, yeah, that's what I mean, but I don't know very much of my history at all. I'll never breathe that long to even scratch the surface of my history. Okay? So then, what's the purpose for studying history? Just to find out where the mistakes was made that you're making now, so you don't make them again. That's the logical answer. But that's why I say Black History Month, we shouldn't be celebrating. We should be educating. Educating about what? Learning how to solve problems. What problems? The ones you got right now. That's all.
Okay.
That's what history is supposed to be for.
Okay.
That makes sense. And everything in codification is supposed to make sense. It's supposed to have value. It's supposed to be something you can use. So you just look at whatever your problems you got and say, hey, all the history I need to know is how to solve this problem is right in front of me right now. Because I'll never know the history of everything that happened before the beginning of time and since.
All right. Thank you, Shane, from Japan. Thank you. Don't be a stranger here. I'd like to give a shout-out to all those who are in Africa, the UK, of course, Japan, and all around this sphere who happen to be listening to the program, and hope that you are still learning. Let's go down to the 504, to the great city in the south. That would be Nolens. And we have Infinity. Infinity, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning. I have VGQ.
Okay.
I've been practicing the code every day, like a daily practice of living. And what I've learned, it's empowered me, and it disarms and disables any white supremacist, anyone operating from a white supremacist code. I spoke to Mr. Fuller in 2014. I was in art school, and I was bombarded with all kind of nonsense and a lot of things to distract and confuse me. And one thing Mr. Fuller said that stuck with me, and I repeat this every time I'm confused to myself, he asked me, what is it that you want them to do? So then I started thinking about it, and I started applying that question to everything when I had a snag with dealing with anyone. And a prime example of how it worked, this was in 2019. I was putting up an art display, and some one operating on a white supremacist code who had nothing to do with what I was doing. They kept instructing me to do nonsensical things, and I was doing something very serious. So instead of getting upset, I actually thought, and I thought on code. I didn't have time to go do all kind of elaborate stuff to get this person out my way. So I did what Mr. Fuller advised us to do. I asked them, what is it you want me to do? And then when they persisted, I asked, well, can you come show me what you want me to do? That person basically was at loss of words, couldn't think, couldn't do anything, and they were just forced to walk away and leave me alone. And that's happened many times over the years. And I just wanted to say the book works, and you have to read it. Not you have to read it, but reading it works, and reading it often works.
Okay. Thank you, Infinity, for that. Thank you very much, and do not be a stranger. Mr. Fuller, on page 171, 172 of the Revised Standard, Revised Standard of the Revised Code Book, 2016 edition. Just in brief, what are those 4 wants, just for those who are new to the program?
Yeah, the 4 wants. Every creature wants something. Every second that they're awake, they want something. I looked out the window this morning, which I usually do, just to get a fresh start. And I inhale and exhale and make what I call my universal prayer. And that is something that George Floyd was trying to do. And it's in the code book. It's called a universal prayer. And I inhale and I hold my breath for about 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, long as I can. And then I get uncomfortable by holding my breath. Then I release my breath. Then I think about what I just did, because I have control. See, we are born on what we call our birthday, and even though we so-called celebrate our birthdays every year, but really, according to compensatory logic, you only have one birthday. That's the day you're born. Then you have what? When you are born, you breathe. You inhale. And that's when you cry out, I'm here, okay? That's when everybody knows you're really here. Before then, you're just some raw material. But when you take that first breath, you inhale, then you exhale, and you let out a shout. That's what babies do. And the shouting just kind of continues, much too long for most people who are trying to get some sleep. But you're actually what you call breathing. So I revisit that just as a reminder that I have control over breathing, but to a limited degree, because one day, after many so-called not birthdays, but breath days, because I only have one the day I'm born, then you have breath days, hoping you'll have many, many, many breath days before you finally have what? A death day. So that's where that goes. You breathe. And so it goes down to, in answer to the question on page 171, 172, you want to do certain things with your breath days. Every moment is a gift. Your breath is a gift. Because when you take that last one, you ain't going to have no control over it. That's your last breath. You were given the first one, you're going to be given the last one. And all the king's horses and all the king's men are not going to get you breathing again. The people who are on the ventilators now, very unfortunate. Those who are not going to make it on account of the virus, they are breathing. They are on those ventilators trying to breathe. That's what I've been told. That's what I've read about. That's what COVID-19 is. It has to do with breathing. As long as you can keep breathing, you got some hope. of things getting straightened out. You stop breathing, that's it. Because that's the first thing you do when you go from what they call raw material to something that's an active person or creature. So it gets down to the wants. That's like the lady's asking about. Those 4 wants, what are they? What do you, first of all, you ask yourself, what do I want to do? That's number 1. Number 2, why do I want to do what I want to do? Number 3, how do I plan to do what I want to do? And number 4, what do I expect the constructive result to be? Now, those are 4 universal questions that apply to every situation, everywhere on the planet, every minute of the day, when a person or people are interacting with themselves or interacting with each other. And like the lady gave that illustration, she said she was getting frustrated, which is what you do, dealing with people all day long. But if you want to cut right to the chase of any kind of frustration you're having with anybody, rather than get into making statements, stay in the question lane. That'll handle a whole lot of situations right there. But what questions? The best questions you can ask or someone else. What do you want me to do? And don't interfere with the answers. Just listen patiently while they give you a description of what they want you to do, whatever this person is. What do you want me to do? Question 1. Question number 2. Why do you want me to do what you want me to do? Why do you want me to do it? Must have a reason. You're telling me this is what you want me to do. Why do you want me to do it? And here again, don't interfere with the answers. Don't argue about the answers. Just listen patiently and be ready with the next question. How do you plan for me to do what you want me to do? And let them tell you, be patient. Listen. Don't break into the answer. That's a mistake. Because now you're going to start making statements, and then everything turns into an argument. You're not looking for an argument. You want to shut this down. Or you want to embellish it if it's something that's going to be great for you. And then that 4th question is the real clincher. What do you expect the constructive result to be if I do what you want me to do? And don't break into the answer at all. Let them answer. And like the lady said, in many, many cases, people will go on and on and on for an hour or 2, and you'll be getting frustrated. Next thing you know, you're getting into a shouting match, and then an argument, and seriously, might even turn out to be a big fight. But you're talking about shutting something down when it ain't nothing to it. Those 4 questions will lead you there faster than anything else that you will ever do. According to what? According to logic. Those 4 questions, called the 4 wants, the 4 way of talking about wants. Because everybody wants something every second of the day. Just walking across the room, you want to walk across the room. Why did you walk across the room? That's the next question. Oh, I saw a comfortable chair on the other side of the room. That's an illustration I give. Just a simple thing. You left that chair in the hotel lobby, and you went across the lobby all the way to the other side to sit in another chair. That's something you wanted to do. So why did you want to do that? Well, this chair is more comfortable. Oh, well, how did you plan to do it? By walking over here. That's how I planned to do it. And I executed my plan, and now I'm more comfortable. So now we're in number 4. Was that a constructive thing to do? You better believe it was. That chair over there was hurting my back. I got a bad back as it is. When I sat in this chair, it fit me right. Hey, I want to sit here all day. You know, I'm comfortable. End of story. Those 4 questions will take everybody right where they should be in a conversation. It might not take everybody where they want to be, but it's guaranteed to take everybody where they should be.
Okay. All righty. Let's move on here. Oh, by the way, Mr. Fuller, thank you for that information that you gave last week about you being on the Carl Nelson show last week. Many of our listeners did tune in. They informed me of that. I listened to the entire 2-hour program. It was good, and I appreciate every time that you are on that particular show. When they inform you that you let me know, and I will inform people so that they can also listen to more of you when you're on the Carl Nelson show. So thank you again, and you were, as usual, very good, very good.
I'd like to ask you while I'm on there, what did you think of my responses to the questions?
I thought that you do like you always do. You're very thorough, very concise. You stayed on message, stayed on code. And like Carl says, you have to listen very carefully. You have to and follow the logic that you're using, and getting people to be trained on following the logic, which you also demonstrate on this show, is one thing, and it takes time. You are not going to get it all at one time, but you take the time to explain by giving examples of whatever point that you're trying to make to bring about what we are up against and what we are fighting for, and how we should approach questions. You don't ever tell anybody what to do. You make suggestions as to how you want to encounter whatever, or how you want to deal with whatever it is that you encounter. So I thought, in my opinion, that you're just consistent about how, just like as you are on this program, how you do things. Now, people may have a problem with that, but if you keep listening, as Carl, Mr. Nelson had mentioned, you'll begin to understand and see the rhythm and the logic of it. So that's what I thought, Mr. Fuller.
Well, I thought I was terrible.
Yeah, you always do.
I can't cut corners on myself, because
yes,
if I don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, or if it doesn't have a constructive result, that's why I like to get feedback and whatnot. In fact,
sir.
I ask people, hey, don't spare me at all. I mean, it has nothing to do with, well, we don't want to insult that old man and all like that, and he's an elder. Hey, don't buy into that at all. This is serious business.
Yes, sir.
So you don't take no prisoners. You always go for the logic. The logic is supreme. Neely Fuller is just trying to find the logic like everybody else. And when I am not logical, I want to be told.
Yes, sir.
Because otherwise my boat is sinking.
Yes.
When I'm not logical.
When you say that that you're still learning, and when I repeat that, I'm not just repeating it because you said it. As a matter of fact, I was answering someone earlier today about that, or on one of my posts. I don't say something because Neely Fuller said that, because either something is true or not true. I have to understand that, yes, I am still learning. Even in this conversation, I'm still learning how to talk. But I didn't understand that at first until I began to listen to that and understand, yes, I'm still learning. Not because Neely Fuller said that he's still learning. I'm still learning. We all are still learning. And so that's...
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Okay, anyway.
All right.
Let's see here. So, the Carl Nelson show was good. One thing that came up at the end of last week, I didn't call you about this, but people were having a problem in the flag thing, and they were going all into the Capitol with that Confederate flag and all different kind of flags and all that kind of stuff. And I just gave my VGQ on that since I was asked that. Of course, they did what they did, and they were saying what they said. But I gave the universal pledge, and one that fits everything. And I learned the universal pledge from something that you had said in the previous programs. And I thought it might be a good idea for those who have not heard the universal pledge that is good for any flag. And I said I'm going to ask Mr. Fuller if he would, on this program this day, say what that universal, or repeat what that universal pledge is. Mr. Fuller?
Yes, the compensatory universal flag pledge is, I gave it that title, and then I gave the pledge because people asked me about it back in the 1980s, and I said, well, there's a lot of controversy about flags, so not supposed to be any controversy when you start codifying stuff. Codification means you eliminate controversy, which means you come up with the best logic you can possibly come up with. And I told someone it'd take me a couple of weeks. It actually took me about 2 years. But it just came to me one night when I was half asleep. And I ran it past somebody, and when I woke up the next day, I wrote it down. And then I said, yeah, I think that's it. I just kept searching, kept trying different flag pledges or different reactions to a flag. You might be somewhere where somebody demands that you pledge allegiance to whatever flag there is that they have. So you just simply say, oh, no problem. See, that's the magic of compensatory codification. You try to do things that fit any occasion. It's the best thing that you can possibly do. So I came up with this. I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. And that's it. Just that simple. And I say, yeah, I think that's the best possible way that you can pledge allegiance or whatever to a flag. What flag? Any flag. Anywhere. Any time of day or night. Even a flag that you've never seen before. Somebody shakes you in the middle of the night while you're asleep and says, what do you got to say about our flag? Our flag? Yeah, our flag here in this place. Well, I'm on a train passing through this place. I don't even know what your flag looks like, but all the time I can take that pledge right, without arguing or anything. Soldiers standing around you with rifles saying, want you to do a foreigner or whatever, and saying that you take a pledge of allegiance to the flag. No problem. You tell them. I do it all times. Relate to the flag. The exact same way that the flag relates to me. Now, can I get some more sleep, sir? Y'all woke me up. Well, woke me to take the pledge. I ain't gonna argue. There's no argument. I got no problem with the flag at all. Okay? But you've never even seen our flag. I don't have to see it. I'm relating to it the exact same way that it's relating to me, wherever that flag is. Now, suppose somebody says, oh, you're talking kind of silly. You're talking in riddles. Well, what's a flag? But I ain't going to ask that. I said all I got to say about the flag, any flag. Now, if they say, well, what do you mean the flag relates to you? I said, I just told you. I relate the exact same way to the flag, the exact same way that the flag relates to me. Say, but the flag is buried under the ground, the one we're talking about. Yeah, I'm still relating to it the exact same way it relates to me. Say, but what does that mean? It means exactly what it says. Say, are you talking in riddles? Say, well, you asked me a question, and I did the best I could in answer to the question, and I told the truth. I do relate to that flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me.
Yes.
Now, suppose a person pursues it and said, well, blankety, blankety, blank, how does the flag relate to you? And you say the same thing again.
Mm-hmm.
But then if they want you to say something else, if they insist you say something else, you say, well, you tell us. This is the final question. How does the flag relate to you? And then you can say, sir, ma'am, I don't know, but you have my permission to ask the flag.
Exactly.
End of story.
Exactly. Hold on, Mr. Fuller. We got to do this. You are listening and have been listening to the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on blogtalkradio.com. And we thank you for listening. If you have to go, thank you that you tuned in this week. And tune in next week. Maybe you can get the second hour too. But thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thanks you, and I thank you. Thank you for all your calls, your Gmails, and so forth. Stay tuned for the second hour, which will commence in 7 seconds. Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, all over this sphere, all over this planet. Welcome to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, you can simply call this number, 516-453-9921. Be sure to depress the number 1 button, and you will get in line, and you can go from there. You can also Gmail the show, the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com. And please, ma'am, please, sir, do not write me a novel. I will try to read it just as you wrote it. So if there's some grammatical errors in it, I'll do it the best I can. I won't try to correct that, but I will read that. It's best if you call in. That way you can say what you need to say. When you do call in, please, ma'am, please, sir, state your point. Do it quickly. Get it over and quickly so that we can do the others. Okay. Chat room is now open. You can put all your chats on there. And for those of you who understand, please understand that you have people that do write on there. They're called trolls, internet trolls. And all that is a person who deliberately makes a offensive or provocative online post. If you understand that, just let them do that. It's okay. They can do that, but understand what they are, what they are, and don't even worry about it. That's just the way it is. It's open forum, and they can say, or you can say anything that you want to say, whether they like it or not. That's just whether you like it or not. That is irrelevant, but that's what it is. Just try not to abuse that whatsoever. Okay. All righty. So we're going to get back here. What are we still learning? What do you learn? Whatever there is to learn, whatever that is, you figure that out. That's on you. Okay, let's go back to let me see here. Yes, okay. Let's see if I can get Mr. Dalami from South Africa. Let's see, Mr. Fuller. I had him down here, and then I didn't. See if I can get him in here. He had a question that I didn't quite understand, but I said that I would write it, or rather I would read it, and I'm going for time here as I'm trying to. Here we go. Okay. He's from South Africa. He says this, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., it's summer in South Africa, but since the year begun, I haven't viewed the sun properly as it's been blocked by strange clouds. Would you happen to understand this phenomenon?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay. Hello? Ms. Fuller, you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. All righty. You didn't, okay. All right, Mr. Lamy, there you go. Mr. Fuller gave his answer. He's addressing it. He addressed it, and that's it. Don't know what's going on down there or to understand it, but keep on writing and then tune in again. Okay, let's go to the 516. Now, it says just listening there. There is no name, but I'm going to cue you in, and then I might go to Sean here. But anyway, let's do this. Let's see here. See if you have a question. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, got you in here. What is your name? Because it's not up here on the screen.
Oh, okay, yes. My name is Gregory from Florida, regular caller. How are you guys?
Okay, Gregory. Go ahead and ask your question for Mr. Fuller.
Yes, my question for Mr. Fuller is, I would like to ask, why do you think that we are the only people that are expected to respond peacefully to violent situations?
The question is what now?
Why are we the only people who are expected to respond, like, quietly or peacefully during violent situations?
Well, it depends on who's doing the expecting. The white supremacists have said that they expect black people to respond to a violent situation by just allowing the violent situation against them. That is, if the situation is violence against black people, let it happen. Now, why do I say that? Because all the evidence shows that. It's okay to be violent. I mean, the white supremacists love violence. I mean, they worship violence. They worship death. They worship death making. They write tons of books, and book writers, people who write what you call mystery novels and all about blood and guts. You turn on the TV at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you see somebody killing somebody, all about killing. I mean, violence in the form of killing is something that the white supremacists just drown themselves in, and everybody else. They love it. I mean, they buy guns and, hang them on the wall and got them all down in the basement and racks and everywhere. I mean, gun. Anything that has to do with killing, they love it. I mean, even when, hey, I got a full stomach. I mean, I'm way overweight, but I'm going hunting. Well, what are you going hunting for? Are you starving? I mean, you need an animal to eat, wouldn't it? No, I'm not going to eat what I kill, but I just feel like I need to see some death going on. I'm going to let that fox, I'm going to turn that fox loose. I got the fox right out here in the yard. He's in a little box there. But a certain time of year, I'm going to turn the fox loose. Then I'm going to chase the fox down. Watch it in agony, run itself to death. I'm going to do it on horseback. Suffering, death. The white supremacists love it, and they teach it to everybody else. But when it comes to black people, you're supposed to love suffering and death as long as you're doing the suffering and you're doing the dying, if you're black. And I'll help you along with that. But now don't you bother anything that, that has to do with even displeasing somebody, even displeasing someone. Not even doing harm to someone, but just doing something that doesn't please someone white in the system of white supremacy. That is a no-no. Boy, girl, black person. No, don't do anything to displease me. And definitely, if I hit you, you find a way to forgiveness into the mix. That I am forgiven. And you can request that it not happen again, and I'll go along with it until it happens again, and then you can make the same request. And that's the way it should be. But anytime I feel like doing any kind of harm to you, right up to and including killing, this is the natural order of things. And you should look at it like that. That's an excellent philosophy. Excellent. Doesn't get any better than that. That's the white supremacist philosophy when it comes to violence. any kind of violence against non-white people. Non-white people will train you to slaughter each other by the bushel. Run up and down the streets just shooting wild, as long as you're doing it in the hood. You cross these tracks now, or come over on this side of that freeway that we built to keep you separate from us. You're going to find out what hell is. And we're going to ask you not only to forgive us for doing it if we do it in a malicious manner, which we will do, but to feel good about it. Pray for us, all that other stuff. But you always can kill each other around the clock. Or if we choose to get bored and come and kill you and burn down your entire hood. You should say, well, that's the natural order of things. You're listening to the system of white supremacy. That's what it means. I'm white. I am white. You're black. You're non-white. I'm a white person. There's no such thing as me doing wrong. But even when you are right, you're wrong. Because there's no such thing as being black and doing the right thing. That ain't going to happen. According to whom? According to me. White man, white woman, system of white supremacy. Sorry about that, buddy, but that's the way it is.
All righty. Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. Let's go to, okay, let me get this one in here. You don't have a name up here, but in the 682, good morning, and what is your question for Mr. Fuller? Going once, what is your question? Don't have one? Okay, that's fine. Let's just do this here. Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. You don't have your name up here, so I couldn't call you. But go ahead. What is your question?
Sorry about that. I had my mute on. I was listening.
Okay.
But I do have a question, and it's kind of relating to what the last brother spoke on. This weekend, I was working. I was in my work truck, and I was driving down the freeway. I was in Michigan because I'm an over-the-road truck operator. And I was in Michigan, and I was riding down the freeway, and I passed the truck, and I got back over, and then there was a car with a brother in there who I guess was mad that I got in front of him. I don't know, I was just driving. And so when he passed me, he let it be known that he had a gun in the vehicle with him. He was tapping the pistol upside his head, I guess, to say, like, it's a saying that, like, that the pistol get your mind right or something like that. That's what I took it as. And so I got back over in the left lane because I saw that he was applying his brakes. And so I got back over in the left lane. I just going to drive past him. This guy slowed down to be side by side with me. I got my foot all the way to the pedal on my truck. And so logically I'm thinking, I hate to do another brother like that, but I have no option that if he was to roll his window down as if he was going to shoot at me, I looked over, and the side that he was driving on, the right side, had like a steep drop to it, like a hill on that side of it. So in this situation, I'm thinking, it's like my life versus your life. So my question for Mr. Fuller, he drove off and threw his hands in the air and stuff like that, and I merged back over and just got behind him and went on down the road. But my question for Mr. Fuller is, according to my code at that moment, I feel like that in a situation of life and death, should the code at some point be bipolar when it comes to things like a situation like that? I'm trying to take the peaceful approach. So I'm just looking at the brother. I'm not making no certain hand gestures or nothing like that. And I know that he was very angry for some reason. I don't know why, but at some point, I'm thinking if should the code be bipolar at any point when a situation of my life versus your life?
Well, I'll just say I don't know what you mean by bipolar, but what the code says is anytime any person or creature is putting you deliberately in danger, you defend yourself. First of all, by trying to put distance between you and the danger. But if you can't do that, you do whatever it takes to survive. That's someone, who may be inadvertently, operating some machinery or something that's putting you in danger. And the person's not even deliberately doing it. But you see where someone has a buzz saw running and nobody can hear anything because the people who are running the buzz saw probably are hard of hearing. But that buzz saw is coming toward you. Okay? So you do what you can to stop it. And if the person who is operating the controls is, you see the buzzsaw coming at you, and nobody hears it, they don't even know that you're in danger. But see, you have to get the attention of the person who is doing it, or get out of the way of the buzzsaw the best way you can. If you can't do that, you throw a brick or whatever at the person who is at those controls to try to get the person's attention so they can look up and see, hey, this saw is coming at you. It's going to cut you in half from where you are. Nobody can hear it. That might be a sloppy illustration, but that just shows what I mean. But the first thing you try to do, but the code says, dealing with black people, and this is something you should do anyway, always try to keep your distance. Black people are volatile. Well, black people are looking for anything to lash out at, and they love to lash out at what they think is the weakest thing around. And the weakest thing around is another black person, all right? So they're always going to come after you. If they're angry about anything, they're looking for another black person because they're really mad at themselves. But they don't want to commit suicide or nothing like that. So they're going to kill you, for no reason at all, just because you're there. That's why this thing with black people, it goes way back. Man, what you looking at me for? You don't know me. What you looking at me for? You better find somewhere else to look. I'm going to bust a cap in you. Now, you don't know how close you are. You don't know who you messing with. Don't be looking over here at me. You don't know me.
Yeah.
That goes back as far as I can remember that's been going on. Now, what's not knowing him, or looking at him, got to do with anything? But see, that's anger that's really at the system of white supremacy, and they feel helpless against it. So they're going to look around for somebody that looks exactly like them and say, I can't stand you. I hate people that look like you because I hate myself. But I don't want to kill myself, so I'm going to kill you. You dead, man. You dead. You dead right now, And we feel good when we do that.
All right, my brother. Thank you for your call. Don't be a stranger. Okay, let's go to the 513, the great city of Cincinnati, and that's going to be Sean. Sean, good morning, and what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I got more of a VGQ. I also got a question in my VGQ.
Make them real quick. Okay, go ahead.
It's going to be quick. I know the rules of the show, Mr. Bobby. I know the rules of the show.
Okay.
I respect you keep a tight show, man. But it's really wanted to know earlier in the show, a young lady was speaking on white privilege. I just wanted to know what his take was on white privilege, what his opinion was about Thomas Sowell, and how do we, as avid listeners of you, Mr. Fuller, keep your legacy going, even with you still here, because I think about Frances Cress Welsing and her not being here. I don't feel her presence with her not being here. I want your presence, even now, to be something that we could work on now to make sure that afterwards, and I think that will even get more of the message spread. If we can just find a way to emphasize what you have put out for us and the way that we could, like I said, just keep your legacy going and keep even Frances Cress Wilson going, because I know you and her had a relationship, and she is what has introduced me to you. I'm so thankful for that. Brother, I apologize. I'm going on.
That's okay. Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Yeah.
Huge mistake to even think that Neely Fuller has a legacy that's not available to you 24/7 and has been the same way it was available to Neely Fuller. It's just a matter of what is that legacy. Neely Fuller doesn't have no legacy. What is there has always been there that Neely Fuller just picked up on. And that is a thing called logic. It came with the universe. That's what code is about. That's why we need a code. A code is not a person. A code is a way of getting things done. Neely Fuller came into the world kicking and crying and screaming for help, just like everybody else. And I'm kind of up in age now, and it ain't going to be long before I ain't going to be doing much kicking except that bucket.
Yeah.
But I might be doing some crying, or I might just slowly slip away. But that goes with the territory. But the thing that Neely Fuller is going to leave behind is not his legacy. He's going to leave behind what has always been here since the beginning of time. And that is what? A thing called logic, Logic. That's what you follow. Don't ever become enraptured about a person. And I've seen some of that where Dr. Wilson is concerned. She suddenly left here. Suddenly. Overnight.
Right.
Okay? And a lot of people. Malcolm, just go right down the list. Maya Angelou, I mean, she had a gradual exit, but everybody's going to leave here. So you don't look around and say, well, I got to keep her presence here. You know, people are doing that with Dr. Wilson. I got to, you know, it's all about Dr. Wilson. No, it's about her message. She knew that. She understood that. And I certainly understand it. I don't want everybody to be talking about Neely Fuller's legacy. When people refer to my book, I do want them to do that now. So that, why? But not on account of something personal. Neely Fuller being glorified in death is because it's to keep down confusion. Because the white supremacists are already siphoning off parts of my book and claiming it as their own. See what I mean? The refined white supremacists pick up on anything that black people are doing, and they peck into it. They siphon it off and use it to strengthen white supremacy. They know how to do that. So I want my words to still resonate. But as far as Neely Fuller himself and the way he expresses himself and what he looks like and all like that, no. No, you follow what Neely Fuller is following. That's why I say black people should have one leader, and that leader is whatever created the universe and whatever created logic in the universe. But in that particular case, it's not even the creator. It's the messages that are sent to a person about what to do and what not to do. That's what you latch on to, cause and effect. And you want to always do the things that produce what? The most constructive result.
Results. Mm-hmm.
That's all black people should concentrate on. Those two words, constructive results. Not whether or not Neely Fuller is still around, you know, putting this stuff out here and all like that. No, you just say, hey, this is a day that's given me. And everything that I do all day long, it better produce a constructive result. Otherwise, my day was wasted. The breaths that I take were wasted. It's a waste of time and energy if I'm not producing constructive results all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the legacy that everybody should want. Constructive results. And it doesn't get no better than that. Why not go for the whole top? Right.
All righty. Thank you, Sean from Cincinnati. And let's do this. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with the show, dial 516-453-9921, and be sure to depress the number 1 button if you have a question or VGQ. You can also Gmail the show by my site here, the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, Bobby, @gmail.com. Please, ma'am, please, sir, do not write me a letter or a novel. Just do it quickly and so that I can read it. Now, chances are it will not be read today for the most part, but it will be read at some point in time, and I will give you the date or inform you of the date and time when that's read, so you can do that. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so we are getting ready to go into our last half of the hour. We got about 32 minutes, and while I'm going to do that, while we are here, Mr. Fuller, I did not do this in the first hour, but I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to design a space that you may speak about your book so we can run or go straight through the VGQs, the calls, and the Gmail. So, Mr. Fuller, let's talk about that book.
Yes, the things that I have been saying and the things that people say of my legacy, it's just a textbook for victims of white supremacy. And at this stage, here in the year 2021, we should have been at this stage right out the gate. I'm talking about eons ago, or whenever it started, whenever this thing about white supremacy started, the very minute that it started, or somebody got the idea that what the world needed now at that time was a system of white supremacy. And somebody got that idea, and it took off like a brush fire. On that same day that the white supremacists started codifying, meaning coming up with a formula for making it work, this system of white supremacy. Somebody should have said, well, I'm going to see to it that this doesn't work. And since that's going to be a codified system, meaning it's going to be very carefully orchestrated in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, and that there's going to be a prescription for what white people will be doing in these areas and what non-white people will be doing, and what white people won't be doing and what non-white people won't be doing. And we'll see to it under white supremacy by force if necessary. And it will all be codified. So somebody right on that same day should have said, well, I'm going to codify a way to keep you from doing this. And it's going to be codified, meaning what? What do you mean by codification? Meaning just like what you're doing is codified, meaning it works. And what I'm going to be doing is going to work. And that's shutting you down. So no one has come up with a counter-racist code yet. So I'm trying to write one. And if there is supposed to be any such thing as a quote-unquote legacy, every black person should be trying to, quote-unquote, write code minute by minute every day that he or she is breathing. Because that's what the textbook for victims of racism is supposed to be doing. A code for what? For doing the most constructive thing. That's what. Well, why the most constructive thing? Because if you're black and you're doing the most constructive thing, that you can think of doing all day long, each and every day, you are putting the codified racists out of business. The racist code. When you are countering their code is to destroy everything that a non-white person is doing that is of constructive value, including the person, him or herself. So a counter-racist code is about preventing that from happening or stopping it because it's already in operation and shutting it down. So how do you do it? Therefore black people doing always something that is non-constructive. So if you do something that's constructive, you're automatically putting them out of business. So that's what the code, my contribution, and I don't like to use that word because I'm trying to do the whole job with one book, but I know that that's not likely to happen, being logical and realistic. But I have written a book called A Textbook for Victims of White Supremacy, a textbook workbook to counteract and put out of business the system of white supremacy and what you do and what you don't do each and every day. Always try to do the most constructive thing that will have the effect of knocking out the most non-constructive thing, and that is the system of white supremacy and the way that it dominates and mistreats non-white people. So you want a prescription or a code for everything that they do that winds up being a form of mistreatment against the non-white people of the planet. Everything that they do, everything that they say. It's very precision codified what they do. We don't have anything like that at all. All we do is have a bunch of emotions about how we feel about it. And that has gotten us nowhere. We've never even attempted to have a code. So I've tried to write one that covers all 9 areas of activity to the extent that it gives some suggestions about what to do in every circumstance as an individual person, not looking over your shoulder to see if you've got somebody backing you up or somebody walking alongside of you arm in arm. That makes a physical impression, but it doesn't necessarily mean that anything is going to happen that's going to have an effect of countering white supremacy and putting it out of business. We need a code for that. We need a code for everything. Because the thing that you leave out, the thing that you don't pay attention to, that's the thing that will be the weak link in the chain. Because all activity is connected. So you want to codify every move that you make, everything that you say, and everything that you do, so that it has a constructive effect, a constructive result, and not a non-constructive effect or a non-constructive result. So that's what the textbook for Victims of Racism is all about. And you can get it by going to producejustice.com. And basically it's in 2 volumes there. Mm-hmm. The 2016 volume is a revised edition. And the word guide is an addition to that volume, showing you how to use words, how not to use words, what questions asked when other people use certain words. That's very important because the white supremacists are coming up with ways of saying things that confuse black people all the time, every day, all day. Go to producejustice.com. That's how you can get the volumes.
Okay. All righty. We have 24 minutes, and we got 6 things to do, so do the math on that here. Let's go to, let's see here, 954. That would be Nicole from Maryland. You're on. Hello?
Hello. I do at all times relate to the flag as the flag relate to me. Now, what respectfully do that flag mean to you? Thank you for that gift as a key today, as an ex-gang member that got educated over 20 years ago to apply logic, reason, and philosophy to being a human capital stakeholder. A couple of things, and I'm going to be brief. Valley Genius is one book I have read. I Do Mind Dying, Detroit Auto Worker, Walking with the Wind. I read an elementary Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's like racism in the Bible. As to by Shakespeare, how symbols are used in religion to enslave. Lastly, listen to an old show of Dr. Wilson through the RCW in February of 2015. Great show. Back up to speed on how curve systems as banks have been doing for years after the Great Depression, with statistics of labeling generations, storytellers of the past, to baby boomers working, not saving, or current next, not X generation, being able to be caught up with scholars as yourself, applying pressure to systems with constructive results.
All righty, Nicole. Thank you so much. And don't be a stranger.
Thank you.
Let's go to the 301, and that's going to be Bill. If I can get you up here because there's something in the background. Bill, are you there from Maryland?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead, Bill. What's your question for Mr. Fuller?
Two questions, if possible. One, the first one, in terms of relationships between male and female, particularly non-white, could you address the concept of love or romance versus affection? And then number two.
Let Mr. Fuller answer the first question first. Mr. Fuller?
What was that first question?
Repeat that first question, Bill.
In terms of the relationship between males and black males and females, could you address the concept of affection versus love and romance?
Yes. Romance is a word that's associated with the ancient Romans. And so when you look at people like Tiberius, you look at people like Lady Livia. Hello. I hear a lot of
whoever's in the background, you have to cut that down. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Okay. So romance is associated with the Romans. So what is it about the Romans, that people should pay attention to, and the way they go about doing things when it has to do with, basically, it has to do with a lot of things, like they say romantic art and all like that. But basically, they're also talking about male with female. And so what made the Romans so special when it came to relationships between male and female? Well, the Romans are basically known and looked upon with great awe, and they teach a lot about the Romans, ancient Romans, in schools in the Northwestern Hemisphere and all over the world, principally for people who speak Spanish and French and the English languages and those quote-unquote cultures. They teach a lot about the Roman Empire, romance, romantic language, all that type of thing. Well, you look at of the Romans, well, it's about mostly conquest, killing people for fun, throwing people to the lions in the Colosseum. It's about all kinds of intrigue, people backstabbing each other, whether it's something involved in some of the characters like Julius Caesar or Caesar Augustus or Tiberius. And there's a TV series that kind of gives you some information, one that I recommend called I, Claudius by the British Broadcasting Company. It came out in the 1980s, I think, about a 13-part series. I think you can get something that's very, very informative by looking at that series. And so that's about Romans and being passed down. And black people even say, well, I'm having a romance. Well, the code says, well, maybe you don't need all of that baggage. What does that have to do with anything, if you can understand it at all? But you can have affection. You can have caring, because that's the best you can do in the system of white supremacy. And black people are subject to the system of white supremacy. So what's the best arrangement between black males and black females in the system of white supremacy? Well, the best arrangement you can make is a caring. You care, and you're supportive in the best way you can be, because the white supremacists don't want black males and black females to be supportive of each other. And we can't look to romance, because that's phony. It won't work. That's something that's made up. It probably worked for the Romans, but it won't work for people who are subject to a alien power, meaning the system of white supremacy. So we are going to have all kinds of dissension between black males and black females, because the white supremacists want it that way. They set the black male and the black female against each other in all kinds of ways, and it's easy for them to do that. So you already know that. So you're not going to have the type of relationship, a relationship of love, because you can't have love without justice, and you can't have justice in the system of white supremacy, nowhere on the planet. Justice doesn't exist. You can't have justice and the system of white supremacy on the same planet at the same time, because according to the code, love and justice are one and the same. So there is no love, and cannot be love between black males and black females, but there can be affection, quote unquote, or caring. That's why the code says you really can't be a husband or a wife to anybody if you're black in the system of white supremacy. But you can be a care mate, and that's how it's expressed in the textbook. You have a care mate, meaning a person that you care for, a person that you will help. But as far as eliminating arguments, you're going to have those. I mean, you're going to have arguments you can blow up. But you also have a system, that's why we need a code for this. No violence will take place. No black male should ever except lift his hand against a black female about something she did or something she said. Doesn't make any difference. She comes in at 3 o'clock in the morning with no explanation of where she's been. None at all. And that would make the average, I'm just giving this as an illustration, person pretty angry, who's supposed to be a quote-unquote husband, which he's not, because you can't be married really in the system of white supremacy. The white supremacists say what a marriage is, all right, for the victims of racism, but that's another story. But say that happens. Now, you can blow up, you can have an argument, but you can't hit that person. Now, you can agree to disagree, and you tell her that, well, what she needs is somebody new, because it seems like she has found somebody. And what you need is somebody who doesn't disappoint you by coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning with no explanation. So you just agree to disagree. And you can be angry about it, and you can shout and curse and all that. That goes with the territory. But no violence. None. No physical violence. Now, that's an absolute.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be that. It cannot ever be that. That should stop right now. and you don't pass that on to your offspring either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somewhere along the line you agreed to be with each other. So when you agree not to be with each other, shouldn't be any violence. That's all. Even if you make up and come back later, shouldn't be any violence ever. Don't you ever raise your hand in a violent way.
Okay. Bill, what is wait a minute, let me see if I can get you in here. What is your second question quickly?
Yes, on the same train. So then why does the code recommend no sex between white people and non-white people?
Because it strengthens the system of white supremacy. And I use, so that people can understand it, black people are prisoners of war. The white supremacists are the prison masters. So if you have sexual intercourse, a white person has sexual intercourse with a black person in the system of white supremacy, that white person is committing a war crime against the prisoner of war. Black people are prisoners of war. We don't call ourselves that, but we were born in prison. And every white person is given the title of a prison master, whether they use that title or not. And so it's like the prison master going into the cell of a prisoner of war and having sexual intercourse with the non-white person, and then doing what? Walking out of the cell. Sex is supposed to be between equals, absolute equals. One person doesn't have any more say-so than the other. That's what makes what you call harmony, when both people involved, one equal to the other. One doesn't have any more power than the other. So that is a super violation on the part of whom? On the part of the white person involved. You're taking advantage. It's the same as child molestation, because the non-white person is in the position of a child. A prisoner of war is in the position of a child. They don't have control of anything. So any prison master that comes in that cell and has sexual intercourse with the prisoner is a child molester and a war criminal. Of course, there are war criminals anyway if you're white in the system of white supremacy. If you have done anything that directly or indirectly does harm to a non-white person at any time, that's a war crime. Why? Because non-white people are victims of illegitimate war criminals, which is what a war criminal is. He's illegitimate. She is illegitimate. Say, well, but they love each other. They want each other. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, a 7-year-old may want to have sexual intercourse, or if they're past puberty and whatnot, or enjoy it or something, or allow it, if you can say they allow it, okay, with a 40-year-old, that's child molestation on the part of the older person. It's the same type of power relationship, because it's not just the older thing, it's the position. The 7-year-old is what they call innocent. They don't even know what's going on. They're being taken advantage of. And it's the same way with a non-white person in the system of white supremacy. Now, you got no system of white supremacy, and everybody's equal. You have justice on the planet. Then it's just one person with another. But according to the code and according to logic and according to counter-racist science, as long as you have the system of white supremacy and a white person is having sexual intercourse or even engaging in sexual play with a non-white person, that white person is automatically, according to the code, a racist aggressor. of the worst kind. It's in the textbook.
Okay.
Now, that's either true or false. Based on what? Logic.
Logic. All right, Bill, don't be a stranger here. Let's quickly go out to Oakland. And Vision, quickly, what is your question for Mr. Fuller? Hello? Yeah, what is your question for Mr. Fuller? Yes, you're on. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, firstly, I just wanted to say that I've started constitutional law because of the code, and I'm really grateful for the code in that. And I also wanted to say that to Neely Fuller, I wanted to say your work has a constructive effect. I hope you can and will continue. And I have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, here's a question. What do you remember about the murder of Emmett Till, and how did his death impact you growing up?
Oh, well, I was used to hearing about that, things like that. Murders. I'd seen all kinds of pictures and whatnot of black people being lynched and people smiling at the camera and pointing to the hanging body in the tree and people eating sandwiches and whatnot and drinking liquor while they lynched a black person. So when I saw the picture of Emmett Till in Jet magazine, I just said, well, there it is, and I'm glad that his kin people decided that they wanted an open casket and say, hey, we want everybody to see this, to see what they actually did to this fella, all right? I mean, see a picture of it anyway, as it really is, because I'm thinking of all of the people. When I saw it, I just said, well, there you have it. Then there was, later on, Life magazine ran a few pictures on Mac Parker, lots of people. And then I thought about all of the black people who were caught on back roads in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Missouri. I mean, not just the South, but in the North, and killed and thrown into the river, just left there by the side of the road. And all of the things that I heard about, and all of the names, thousands and thousands. I think that there were actually thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, if not into the millions altogether, of what we call nowadays lynchings. I think there were just that many, because killing a black person was nothing. Oh, I mean, hey, I thought somebody was dead. You came in here all excited, would not say somebody got killed. That's a Negro. Are you kidding? I mean, don't waste my time talking about going out there looking at a dead Negro. Only they didn't say Negro. They used the N-word. I mean, and it was just routine. It was just something like swatting a fly. And so that's my reaction to when Emmett Till was killed. It wasn't anger or nothing else. I say, what else is new? It's going to happen, and it's happening now. While we're talking about Emmett Till, I mean, there's 4 or 5 other people being dragged down a road behind a truck. I mean, it's routine. That's what they do. That's where we are. That's the kind of people we are among. And, and they've made animals out of us. I mean, because they're acting that way when it comes to us. So we act that way, too. So what? So what? That was my attitude. But I said something should be done about it, but how long have we been saying that? Something ought to be done. Somebody ought to do something. I even asked myself, well, what should I do? And the answer came real quick, like you always do. Neely, Negro, talking about, ain't that awful? And then turn to the sports page.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for calling from California. Thank you for your call. Zion, we got 4 minutes. I don't know if it'll do you justice, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll get you right in here quickly. Let me see. Zion, go ahead. You're quickly on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Greetings. I understand we only have like 4 minutes till the program ends, so I'm going to ask my question next week, but
okay.
I can just leave with a VGQ.
Okay.
So, Mr. Fuller, it's a huge honor to be able to speak with you and to take in your information and learning the code and still learning as a young individual. It's really great for me because I can grow up and I know what's going on in this world, and I could be able to share the code, and it's just a blessing for me and a blessing for all of us, and I just hope that the Creator continue to bless us and just to stay constructive all through 21 and beyond.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you, Zion.
Have a good
day.
Have a good day, Mr. Bobby.
All righty. Now, Zion, tell you what, I got your number down here, so we'll have you call in next week, and I'll fix it or have it fixed so that you can be right in line. In the same way with you, Imani, I know you call in all the time, but we don't have enough time to do you justice, but I have you down here for a call next week. I also have your number, so we'll do that. We just ran out of time because, as you know, Mr. Fuller will give an example of what he's trying to say and give the so that you could understand it. And while we're on that, Mr. Fuller, as you and I discussed last week, you said that I could, if you got long-winded, cut you off, but I don't like to do that. But could you tell the people that you had what you told me about last week, giving you permission to do that? Because every time I do that, then I'll get cards and letters or that I'm, cutting you off. So would you explain to them how you gave me the permission to do that?
Yeah, sometimes I give an illustration. It takes too long. A number of people have said that, and I'm aware of that. But at the same time, I'm saying, well, I'll just do the best I can to chop into it, but somebody might better understand what I'm saying, because when I first started doing what I'm doing, or writing my writings, a lot of people said, oh, I didn't quite catch on to what you wrote. So I say, well, that's because I'm not an excellent writer. And then sometimes when I'm trying to explain things, I leave people hanging, and that is not supposed to ever happen. I am not supposed to ever. That's a code violation that's monumental, and that is for Neely Fuller to say anything, and it's confusing.
Yes.
Or people don't quite understand what it is that I'm saying. That's a no-no. Codification says clarity and focus is absolute.
Okay.
Nobody's ever supposed to misunderstand anything when you start talking about counter-racist codification, regardless of who the speakers are or the writers are.
Yes, sir. Well, we're up against
make
the
yourself
clock.
Clear.
Yes, sir.
Right.
We're up against the clock again. Sorry about that, but I wanted to get that in so that the people understand that I'm not doing that, but you have given me the permission to do that. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll try to do better next program. Have Mr. Fuller do that. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you for all your calls. Thank you for all in the chat room. Thank you for everybody again. We'll try to do better next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to producejustice.com.
Thank you.